Hey everyone, my name is Antonio Alanis. I am a student right now, I'm a rising senior in college, and I need to study for my graduate school exam, which is GRE. And a lot of information from there is pretty much consisting on vocabulary, and what I did was just went ahead and bought a couple, well not a couple, just a box of 500 flashcards in terms of vocabulary. And what I want to do is just go over them. So basically I'm just going to tell myself a couple of connections and just impersonate these words so that I can further continue on and learning them and then connect them very well. So the first word that I want to do is called airy, and it's pronounced airy, and it's a noun, and it means a nest built high in the air, an elevated, often secluded dwelling, and it just basically means like a nest. So how can I remember this word? Well, airy is some sort of, when I hear the word airy, the word air comes to mind. Where would a specific animal live geographically? Well, some sort of bird will live up there in a mountain, somewhere like in a cliff, sort of like a bald American eagle or some sort of condor, some sort of bird that just flies to the air to have a nest built there, so airy. Now the thing is, I don't know the etymology, which means the history of the word. 9 times out of 10, knowing that information will help us understand and further retain that information. So airy means like a nest or a dwelling. Now the next word is aesthetic. Well, aesthetic is an easy one because I've heard it before. It means concerning the appreciation of beauty. So what does this mean? Usually when I think of aesthetics, I think of Apple, the company Apple. I've read a couple of not magazines, rather articles talking about the creation and the decoration or the outside appearance of Apple. You know, it just creates people to go and want to have that laptop because it looks so beautiful, right? So usually when I think of Apple, I think of aesthetics, I think of beauty, I think of sleekness, I think of the word, or not the word, the color white, I think of nice square keys on the keyboard, I think of the magnificent screen, I think of the light, I think of the Apple logo, I don't know. So aesthetics, concerning with beauty. Now let's continue on with the third word. The third word is affected. I've heard this word a lot, and usually it doesn't mean what I think it means. Affected means phony or artificial. Affected, when I guess in normal everyday English we think of someone being affected is someone who has been influenced in terms of there has been a contribution to their feelings or the way of feeling, but no. Affected means someone who has been kind of someone who's making up who they are. Who do I think is being a phony? Well, a phony is some sort of person who makes up their own image. Someone who's not real with themselves. A phony. A phony, an affected person. Well, who do I think is an affected person? Affected. Well, I really don't know at the moment, but I will keep it here. While this video is done, I'm just gonna go out there and research who I might think would be affected, because I don't want to say something right now and then later have to correct myself. But I will do it in the privacy of my own time. Now the next word is aggrandize, which is a verb and it means to increase in power, influence, and reputation. Well, in Spanish, I know a lot of Spanish. Well, Spanish is my first language. And a lot of what I know in Spanish, and I've heard this from other people who are learning vocabulary as well, are people who learn from their root words in terms of their Spanish language. So grande, which means big in English, is right here. So increase, an increment, accretion, some sort of something that goes up. So now aggrandize. So what does aggrandize mean again? Aggrandize means to increase in power. What has increased in power in the past year? Well, I want to say that China's economy has aggrandized over the past year, if not the past decade, through its government and economic policy. So this is what it means, aggrandize, to increase. Right. The next word is alacrity. I've heard this word before. Alacrity means speed or quickness. Well, alacrity means speed and quickness. How do you remember this? Well, in Spanish, there's this word called lacra. Lacra is pretty much some sort of, it's a horrible description, but it's someone or something. I think it's usually, the definition is usually associated with some sort of insect, such as someone who is out there who is kind of like a parasite, but is so despicable, so disgusting. Someone who is just horrible. So this is alacrity. So I think of this saying that, you know how they say that failure loves company. So I think that people who are absolutely disgusting and despicable love to have company with others and often bring others down. So alacrity, someone who is despicable, someone who's disgusting, will most likely go out there with great speed to bring others down, which is horrible. So that's what it means, alacrity. To be fast, just the adjective, the noun, excuse me, which means speed. Alacrity. But I will certainly look up the word and its etymology again in my privacy of my time. And then the next word is analgesia. Analgesia, what does this mean? Oh, and if you have noticed right now, I'm just concentrating my work on understanding and just learning about the A words so that I can have a better understanding of these. Alright, so analgesia means lessening of pain without loss of consciousness. Well, it kind of sounds like some sort of word that I heard before in terms of medicine, like analgesics. Have I pronounced that correctly? I don't think so. But other words such as anesthesia, some sort of substance that allows us to, whenever we're being, I don't know, surgeon or whatever, when we need to feel pain, this is what blocks our nervous system from making us feel painful. So analgesia means to lessen, some sort of a lessening of pain without loss of consciousness. So just lessening of pain without loss of consciousness. I guess it's very important to remember that this word has a second part, which means without loss of consciousness. Okay. So the next word is audacious. Audacious is one of my favorite words because it means that someone has been brave, someone who has been fearless, someone who has been without care, just someone who has just been out there, right? And the definition means fearless and daring. So who do I think is a very audacious person? Well, when I think of audacious, it kind of sounds like some sort of like a fire. Audacious, kind of like a fire. I don't know why it sounds like fire, but the examples of people who I think are audacious are people who walk without shoes, people who walk barefooted on top of broken glass, or people who go out there in the ocean and fish all these crabs. I've seen shows on TV. And other people who might be audacious, people who do bungee jumping, people who do all these extreme sports, people who skydive, people who I don't know, just people who are doing just fearless things. So I like this word, audacious. I would imagine someone with a flame inside just being brave and courageous. That's what it means. Okay, so audacious. I think I've been audacious a couple of times, fearless and brave. The next word is apathy. Well, apathy is a pretty normal word. It means lack of interest or emotion. Who have I seen with apathy? Well, sometimes when I've given presentations in the past, a lot of people have reacted with apathy. And right now I'm doing a research project that I'm a little concerned that my research will be a little boring to others, but it really doesn't matter. I do want everyone to have an appreciation of what to do. So I guess if we break this word down into its root words, we can understand a or a means without, and pathy kind of means like feeling, pathos from the word pathos, and so apathy, I guess. So there's without feeling, without interest, someone who is like that. So I guess remembering people who have been interested in what I've said in the past, or just remembering about being in a class with a bunch of professors, well, not a bunch of professors, just one professor, and then just looking at them like this, like apathy, just on a boredom, like, what are you saying? And I think I remember being in that situation with a statistics class, which was horrible. But then I think I've grown up strong. Now the next word is going to be apocryphal, and it means questionable authority or authenticity. Apocryphal. Apocryphal. You're gonna say that I'm such a nerd, but it doesn't matter. I remember seeing a creature in Harry Potter called the hippogriff, one of those majestic birds slash lion slash something else. This was like a kind of like a mixture or amalgamation of animals together. And I remember that Hagrid, this fat man, the groundskeeper of Hogwarts, he told Harry that hippogriffs like to be treated well. So anytime that I think of apocryphal, which is this vocabulary word, I'm going to think of questionable authority or authenticity, right? And if you remember, one of the things that Hagrid said that first it was for Harry to get on the top of the hippogriff, he would need to ask him first, right? So it's because the hippogriff needed to have a little bit of attention first. He would make sure that Harry was not dangerous. So at first, hippogriff might have looked at Harry with Harry's intentions, with an apocryphal manner. So of questionable authority, authenticity. Maybe he was thinking, well, maybe I'm not sure if I will let him get on me or not. So apocryphal. So someone who is, so he was suspicious. The hippogriff was suspicious of Harry's riding on his back. Okay. So, making silly connections like this can go a long way. Now the next word is going to be arbitrate. I've heard this word before. Arbitrate means to judge or dispute between two opposing parties. This was easy because I've heard it before. The arbitrary. In Spanish, this is the word called arbitro. I think I've heard him before in soccer games or some sort of other times, such as in boxing matches. People who were just like a referee, basically, like a person who stands in between, like saying, no, you're wrong, or yes, you're correct, or just like separating both people and both parties away from each other because they're just being too violent. So arbitrate. So arbitrate to basically jump in and judge or dispute the two opposing parties. Okay. It's kind of like a judge. That's what they do. So I will think of sports in Spanish to remember this word. Now the next word is archaic. Archaic means ancient or old-fashioned. Now going back to my English high school, my English class in high school, because I've never been to England. Archaic, I remember reading that arch means old and kind of goes back to archaeology. Arch is just kind of like the study of old things, and archaic, something is old, old-fashioned. So who do I think is archaic or old-fashioned? Well, I think just learning about archaeology, I remember reading in art history a bunch of all these ancient artifacts. It was interesting, but really, we learned a lot about archaic art, ancient, old-fashioned art. So I like this word, archaic. I'll think of an arch, kind of like that, and think of art history and learning about all these ancient artifacts. The next word is amalgamate. Like I said before, an amalgamate means basically combine or to mix together. Whenever I hear this word of amalgamate or amalgamation, I think of the roof of my mouth, kind of like amalgamate. I think of something thick, something sweet, probably in my mouth, some sort of like honey. I could just imagine combining the honey with your saliva, like amalgamate. Something like that. So I think of amalgamate, mixing like kind of like molasses, some sort of thick honey, some sort of viscous material. viscous food. So amalgamate means to unite, to combine. And I've heard this word before, amalgamation. I've heard this word in geology, learning about rocks, amalgamation, and the creation. I've learned of the growing of rocks and how sometimes they just coalesce into each other and they just move and add and add and add and add. Okay, so amalgamate means to combine. Okay, when you think about geology, a class that was a challenge, but then I liked it. Oh, I think that I'll do these later on my time, but I want to thank all of you for paying attention, and hopefully my techniques can be of use to you all. I basically, to summarize what I just did, you talk out loud, you associate the information that you're learning with your own self, your own life. You try to apply that knowledge into your own understanding, like associating circumstances or people you might know to that particular word. And a third is to, of course, use flashcards. And then I think that's all. Just practice, 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 and then you will eventually all understand what all these words mean. I want to thank you all so much for paying attention. My voice is getting a little raspy, so I need to take a break and just drink some water. But thank you so much for being here.